She changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a jacket. Grabbed her keys and phone. Told her roommate she'd be back in an hour and to call the police if she wasn't. Then she went downstairs and got into the sedan. The driver didn't speak during the ride. No small talk. No explanation. Just smooth driving through early evening traffic toward the hills above the city. 20 minutes later, they pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a building that looked like it cost more per square foot than Michelle made in a year. She followed the driver to a private elevator. Up 40 floors. Down a hallway with abstract art that probably had insurance policies. To a door that opened before they knocked. Inside was a penthouse that felt more like a corporate office than a home. Minimal furniture. Enormous windows. Everything designed for function rather than comfort. Jae-sung stood near the window wearing casual clothes that still somehow looked formal. He turned when she entered. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Would you like anything? Water? Tea?" Michelle almost laughed at the tea reference but caught herself. "Water's fine." He gestured to a chair near the window. She sat today. He poured water from a glass pitcher, handed it to her, then sat across from her with enough distance to feel respectful rather than intimate. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jae-sung said, "I've been trying to understand why you did it. Stopped a guy from shooting you? Intervened in something that wasn't your problem. Put yourself in danger. Acted when my own security was still processing the situation." Michelle took a sip of water. Thought about her answer. "You ever work customer service?" He looked mildly surprised by the question. "No." "Then you don't know how much time you spend reading people. Who's going to be difficult? Who's drunk? Who's going to leave a bad tip or get handsy or cause a scene? You learn to see things before they happen because your paycheck depends on managing situations before they explode. So you notice the gun because you're observant." "I noticed the wrong details. Guy dressed like service staff but moved like security. New employee working the exact shift you show up. Shoes too clean. Nervous energy. Wrong patterns." Jae-sung leaned back slightly. "My security team missed all of that." "Your security team was looking for external threats. Professional hits. Organized attacks. They weren't looking for someone pretending to be invisible." "But you were." "I'm always invisible," Michelle said simply. "So I know what it actually looks like." Something crossed his face. Not pity. Recognition. "The man who tried to shoot me was hired by someone inside my organization," he said. "Someone testing whether I'd become weak. Distracted. The attempt was designed to fail. But the goal was to see how fast my protection would respond. And I responded faster." "Yes." Michelle set down her water glass. "So what does that mean for me? Am I a problem now? Loose end?" "No," Jae-sung said immediately. "You're the only person in that building who acted without agenda. Without calculation. You saw something wrong and you stopped it. You say that like it's unusual. In my world? It's revolutionary." They sat in silence again. Michelle looked out the window at Los Angeles sprawling below them. Lights beginning to emerge as evening approached. From up here, the city looked clean. Organized. Nothing like the street-level chaos she navigated every day. "Why did you want to see me?" she finally asked. "Because I need to know if you told anyone what happened." "The owner knows something happened. Customers saw the mess. But nobody knows details." "And you haven't spoken to police? Friends? Family?" "About what? A guy got fired for being weird and I spilled tea on a customer? Nothing criminal happened. Nothing anyone would care about." Jae-sung studied her face again. That same searching look from the restaurant. Trying to determine if she was lying. If this was performance. If she understood exactly who he was and what kind of danger proximity represented. Michelle met his gaze directly. "I'm not stupid. I know you're not a regular customer. I know that car wasn't random. I know security teams don't just appear unless someone important is involved. And I know that asking questions about any of this would be the worst decision I could make. So you're choosing silence. I'm choosing not to complicate my life more than it already is. He nodded slowly. That's practical. It's survival. Most people would ask for money, protection, some kind of reward. Michelle smiled without humor. Most people don't understand that accepting rewards creates debt. And debt to someone like you costs more than money. For the first time since she'd entered the penthouse, Jae-sung's expression shifted into something that might have been respect. You're right, he said. It does. He stood, walked to a desk near the far wall, opened a drawer and pulled out a phone. New. Still in packaging. He brought it back and set it on the table between them. My number is programmed in. Only mine. If anyone approaches you. If you feel unsafe. If anything unusual happens around you or the restaurant. You call immediately. Michelle looked at the phone but didn't touch it. Why would anyone approach me? Because word spreads. And some people might think you're leverage. Leverage for what? For making me look weak. For suggesting I'm distracted. For implying I've started to care about things outside my organization. Michelle picked up the phone slowly. Have you? Jae-sung returned to his seat. I've started to notice that the people closest to power often see the least clearly. And the people furthest from it sometimes see everything. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. They looked at each other across the expensive furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows. Two people from completely different worlds connected by 3 seconds of action in a neighborhood restaurant. I should get back, Michelle said. My roommate's waiting. Of course. Jae-sung pressed a button on his phone. The driver will take you home. Michelle stood. Started toward the door. Then stopped and turned back. That man who tried to shoot you. The one from inside your organization. He's going to try again, isn't he? Eventually. Yes. And you're just going to wait. I'm going to let him think I'm waiting. There's a difference. Michelle nodded slowly. Good luck with that. Thank you for what you did, Jae-sung said. Not many people would have. Not many people work customer service, she replied. Then she left. The driver took her home in silence. She went upstairs, told her roommate everything was fine, and put the new phone in her nightstand drawer. She didn't plan on using it. But she didn't throw it away either. Park made his first mistake 72 hours after the failed assassination. He held a meeting with 3 captains at a private room in a karaoke bar on Western Avenue. The kind of place where businessmen pretended to unwind while actually negotiating territory and percentages. The room was swept for surveillance. Phones were left in lockers outside. Everything designed for privacy. But privacy was an illusion when someone owned the building. Jae-sung listened to the recording in his penthouse office while Minute-jun stood nearby with a tablet showing security footage from 5 different angles. The audio was clean. Crystal clear. Park's voice explaining how the boss had become a liability. How the divorce had damaged critical financial relationships. How leadership needed younger energy. How change was necessary for organizational survival. The 3 captains listened with carefully neutral expressions. 2 of them asked pragmatic questions about succession logistics. The third stayed silent but didn't leave. In Mafia culture, silence during a coup proposal was the same as endorsement. When the recording ended, Jae-sung looked at Minute-jun. When did he set this up? 2 days ago. Right after he learned about the incident at the restaurant. So he's using it as proof I'm vulnerable. He's framing it as a wake-up call. Suggesting that if civilians are protecting you better than professionals, something fundamental has broken. Jae-sung almost smiled. He's not wrong. Boss. He's not wrong, Jae-sung repeated. Something has broken. But it's not what he thinks. He stood and walked to the window. From up here, Los Angeles looked like a circuit board. Lights and patterns and electricity flowing through organized channels. His organization worked the same way. Power flowing from the top down through careful structures and established hierarchies. But Park had misunderstood the nature of that power. He thought it came from fear. From control. From the ability to make people disappear when they became problematic. That was part of it. But the foundation was something simpler and more fragile. Respect. And respect came from competence. From seeing clearly. From making decisions that proved you understood the board better than anyone else playing the game. Park thinks the restaurant incident made me look weak, Jae-sung said. So we're going to use it to make him look blind. How? By making Michelle visible. Minute-jun's expression flickered with concern. That puts her at risk. Only if Park is stupid enough to move against her directly. Which I'm counting on. And if he does. Then he proves he's not fit to lead. Because going after a civilian who saved my life isn't strategy. It's revenge. And revenge is what weak men do when they run out of better options. Jae-sung returned to his desk. Pulled up a file on his computer. Michelle's background. Employment history. Social media presence that was almost non-existent. A woman who'd moved to Los Angeles 4 years ago from Atlanta. Who worked hard. Who paid bills on time. Who'd never been arrested or involved in anything remotely criminal. She was exactly what she appeared to be. Which made her dangerous in a different way. Because she represented something his organization had forgotten. Action without agenda. Protection without expectation of reward. The kind of loyalty you couldn't buy or threaten into existence. I want word spread carefully, Jae-sung said. Let people know that I've been checking on the waitress who intervened. Not romantically. Not aggressively. Just making sure she's safe. Frame it as gratitude. Park will interpret that as attachment. Yes. And attachment looks like weakness. Which will make him confident. Minute-jun understood immediately. You're baiting him. I'm giving him an opportunity to prove what kind of leader he'd be. If he's smart, he'll ignore her. Focus on building political capital within the organization. But if he's emotional, if he thinks intimidating a civilian will send a message about my judgment, he'll make a move. And when he does, we respond proportionally. Not with violence. With demonstration. Jae-sung closed the file on his computer. Increase surveillance around her apartment and the restaurant. I want to know everyone who approaches her. Every conversation. Every interaction. If Park sends someone, I want to know before they get within a block. And the captains who met with him. Leave them alone. They're testing the temperature. Seeing if there's viable alternative leadership. That's smart. I'd do the same thing. So no consequences? Not yet. Right now they're gathering information. The question is what they do with it. Minute-jun nodded and left to implement the new surveillance protocols. Jae-sung sat alone in his office as evening darkened into night. He thought about Michelle's question from 3 days ago. Have you started to care about things outside your organization? He deflected because the honest answer was complicated. He didn't care about her specifically. Didn't have romantic interest or paternal instinct or any of the emotions that would represent genuine weakness. But he cared about what she represented. About the clarity that came from being outside power structures. About seeing the world without the distortion that came from years of strategic thinking and calculated relationships. She'd saved him because it was the obvious thing to do. And obvious action had become revolutionary in his world. The divorce had stripped away the illusion that his marriage was anything except architecture. That his closest relationships were anything except strategic. That loyalty existed independently from fear and financial incentive. Michelle had acted without any of those frameworks. And that made her more valuable than any captain or underboss or political connection. Not because he wanted to recruit her or use her or turn her into another piece on the board. But because she'd reminded him what genuine loyalty looked like. And he intended to protect that reminder. Even if it required letting Park make mistakes. Park's second meeting happened at a private gym in Koreatown that closed to the public after 10 p.m. The kind of place where fighters trained and businessmen worked out aggression on heavy bags when negotiations went badly. He arrived wearing athletic clothes and carrying a gym bag that contained nothing except a change of clothes and a burner phone. The man waiting for him was named Tommy Rowe. 34 years old. Ran debt collection and enforcement for the Southern Territories. He was smart, brutal when necessary, and ambitious enough to recognize opportunity. They didn't shake hands. Just began hitting separate bags with the kind of rhythm that suggested this wasn't about fitness. "The waitress," Park said between punches. "You know about her?" "Everyone knows. Boss got saved by some civilian because security was watching the wrong things. He's been checking on her. Making sure she's safe. Sending flowers to the restaurant as thank you." Tommy hit the bag hard enough to make it swing. So it looks like attachment. Like he's gotten soft. Sentimental. Or it looks like gratitude. Man shows respect to someone who saved his life. That's not weakness. That's honor. Park stopped punching. "You defending him?" "I'm saying be careful how you frame this. Half the organization thinks that waitress is a hero. Other half thinks security fucked up. Nobody thinks the boss is weak. Distracted maybe. Dealing with divorce shit. But weak? That's not the story people are telling." Then we changed the story. Tommy resumed hitting the bag. "How?" "We test her. See if she's actually just a civilian or if she's smarter than she looks. Maybe she saw an opportunity. Saved a rich man. Now she's playing damsel so he feels obligated." "You think she's running a game?" "I think we need to know. Because if she's manipulating him, that's one problem. And if he's actually getting emotional about a random waitress, that's a different problem. Either way, it's information we need." Tommy stopped again. Looked at Park directly. "What kind of test?" "Nothing violent. Nothing that traces back. Just pressure. See how she responds. If she runs to him for protection, we know he's emotionally invested. If she handles it herself, we know she's tougher than she looks. Either way, we learn something. And if she calls the cops?" "She won't. She's been in the country 4 years. Works cash jobs. Probably has immigration questions she doesn't want asked. People like that don't involve police." Tommy considered this. "What's the play?" "Just conversation. Public place. Make it clear that being connected to our world has consequences. See if she understands what she stepped into. And if she tells the boss, then we apologize. Say there was misunderstanding. That lower-level guy's got overeager trying to protect organizational interests. Boss accepts apology, we move on, but now we know he'll protect her. Which means attachment. Which means weakness." Tommy wrapped his hands tighter. "You're betting a lot on this." "I'm betting on information. Knowledge is what separates leadership from following. Boss has been making emotional decisions since the divorce. Time someone started making logical ones." They finished their workout in silence. Tommy left first. Park stayed an extra 20 minutes, hitting the bag until his knuckles ached, until the rhythm cleared his head enough to think through next steps. He'd been with Jae-sung for 8 years. Had watched him build an empire through cold calculation and perfect timing. Had seen him make decisions that seemed ruthless but were actually surgical. Had learned that real power came from controlling information and perception. But the divorce had changed something. Jae-sung had started going places alone. Started making gestures that looked like sentiment rather than strategy. Started treating a civilian waitress like she mattered beyond the immediate incident. That shift represented either evolution or decline. And Park needed to know which. 2 days later, Michelle was walking to her car after a closing shift when 2 men appeared from a parking garage entrance. Not threatening. Not aggressive. Just present in a way that made her stop walking. The first man was Asian, mid-30s, wearing expensive casual clothes. The second was Latino, younger, with the kind of build that suggested gym membership and physical work. They didn't move toward her. Just stood blocking the direct path to her car. "Michelle?" the first man said. She didn't answer. Just adjusted her bag on her shoulder and evaluated distances. 15 feet to her car. 20 feet back to the restaurant's rear entrance. The street was empty. 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Nobody around except these 2 men who knew her name. "We just want to talk," the man continued. 5 minutes. Nothing dramatic. "I'm not interested in talking. It's about your new friend." The one who comes to your restaurant. Michelle's hand moved toward her bag. Toward the phone Jae-sung had given her. But she stopped. Because pulling out that phone would confirm connection. Would prove these men were right to approach her. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. The second man smiled slightly. We're not cops. Not trying to get you in trouble. Just trying to understand the situation. What situation? The one where you saved someone important. Where you might be thinking that creates relationship. Obligation. Maybe opportunity. Michelle understood immediately. This wasn't random. These were people from Jae-sung's world. People testing whether she was calculating or genuine. Whether she'd understood what kind of danger she'd stepped into. I spilled tea on a customer, she said flatly. That's it. No relationship. No obligation. No opportunity. Just an accident during a busy shift. That's one story, the first man said. But there's another story where a smart woman sees a moment. Acts in a way that creates debt. Then waits to see how valuable that debt becomes. I'm a waitress. I serve food. I go home. That's my entire story. Then why is your home address being watched by professional security? Michelle's stomach went cold. She hadn't noticed surveillance. Hadn't seen anyone or anything unusual around her apartment. Which meant they were good. Or she wasn't as observant as she'd thought. I don't know anything about that, she said carefully. You don't need to know. You just need to understand that being connected to certain people creates complications. For you. For them. For everyone in orbit. The first man took a single step forward. Not aggressive. Just closing distance. So here's friendly advice. Whatever you think happened at that restaurant, forget it. Don't call numbers you've been given. Don't accept gifts. Don't imagine that one moment creates lasting connection. Just go back to normal life and stay there. Michelle looked at both men. Evaluated her options. She could run. Could scream. Could pull out the phone and call Jae-sung directly. But all of those responses would prove these men right. Would show fear or dependence or calculation. Instead she said, "Are you threatening me? We're giving you context. Sometimes people step into situations without understanding the water they're swimming in. We're just making sure you know the depth." I know the depth, Michelle said. And I'm not swimming. I'm working. Now get out of my way. She walked forward. Not around them. Directly through the space between them. Her heart hammered but her expression stayed neutral. The two men stepped aside. Didn't touch her. Didn't follow. Just watched as she reached her car, got in, and drove away. 3 blocks later, her hands started shaking. She pulled into a gas station parking lot. Sat in the dark. Pulled out the phone Jae-sung had given her. Stared at it for 2 full minutes. Then put it back in her bag without calling. Minute Jun called Jae-sung at 4 a.m. with footage from 3 different angles. Michelle walking to her car. 2 men appearing. Conversation lasting 4 minutes. Michelle walking between them and driving away. Then the same men getting into a Honda Accord registered to a shell company that had connections to Park's enforcement division. She didn't call, Minute Jun said. Jae-sung sat in his office wearing the same clothes from the previous day. He'd been reviewing financial reports and supply chain logistics. The kind of operational details that usually kept his mind clear. But tonight, focus had been difficult. She didn't call, he repeated. They approached her. Applied pressure. Made it clear she was being watched. Gave her every reason to reach out for protection. And she chose not to. Because she understood the test. Or because she doesn't trust you enough to use the phone. Jae-sung looked at the tablet screen showing Michelle's face during the conversation. Calm. Contained. No visible fear even though internal fear must have been significant. She'd walked between them. Refused to show weakness. Refused to give them anything except defiance. Park's people, he said. Tommy Rowe and one of his crew. Following orders. Probably told her to forget what happened and stay away. Which means Park sees her as leverage. As weakness to exploit. Or his testing whether you'll overreact to civilians being pressured. Jae-sung stood. Walked to the window. Dawn was beginning to break over Los Angeles. Pink and orange lights spreading across buildings and streets. Another day starting while most people slept. While violence and business and power struggles continued in the spaces between legitimate society. Schedule a meeting, he said. Full room. Every captain. Tomorrow night. You're moving against Park. I'm making a declaration. What declaration? Jae-sung turned from the window. That loyalty means something. That protection means something. That someone who acted without agenda deserves recognition, not intimidation. Boss, this could look emotional. Could look like you're making decisions based on sentiment rather than strategy. Good. Let it look emotional. Let Park think I've become sentimental and weak. Let him believe his test worked exactly as planned. And then? Then I show everyone what real leadership looks like. The meeting was held in a private room at a restaurant Park had suggested. Neutral territory. Large enough for 20 people. Private enough for conversations that shouldn't be recorded. Every captain showed up on time wearing business casual and careful expressions. Jae-sung arrived last. Didn't sit at the head of the table. Stood near the window with Minute-jun 2 steps behind. The room went quiet. Thank you for coming, he said. No preamble. No small talk. We're here because there's been confusion about priorities. Park sat halfway down the table. Hands folded. Expression neutral. What kind of confusion? About what I value. About what this organization values. About the difference between strength and control. I don't understand. Jae-sung looked directly at him. 2 nights ago, someone approached a civilian. Someone who had helped me. Someone who had acted without agenda or expectation of reward. This civilian was pressured. Threatened. Told to forget what happened and stay away. The room stayed silent. This happened, Jae-sung continued, because someone in this organization believed that civilian represented weakness. That my gratitude toward her was sentiment rather than recognition of value. Park's expression didn't change. If someone acted without authorization, they acted on orders. We both know that. So let me be clear about something. Jae-sung moved to the center of the room. Made eye contact with every person at the table. That waitress saw a threat my security missed. She acted while trained professionals were still processing. She asked for nothing in return. Wanted no money, no protection, no connection. She just did what was right in that moment. He paused. That kind of loyalty is rare. That kind of clear thinking is valuable. And anyone who touches what saved me, anyone who pressures or threatens or intimidates someone who demonstrated genuine loyalty, answers to me personally. Park leaned back slightly. This seems like overreaction. She's a civilian. An outsider. Making her important creates vulnerability. No, Jae-sung said quietly. Making her important creates standard. Shows everyone here what I actually value. Not fear. Not calculation. But action when action matters. He looked at Park directly. You wanted to test me. Wanted to see if I'd gotten emotional. Sentimental. Weak. So you sent Tommy Rowe to pressure her. To see if I'd overreact. Park's expression hardened. I was gathering information. You were testing boundaries. Which is smart. Which is what ambitious leaders do. But you made a mistake. What mistake? You assumed protecting someone who demonstrated loyalty was weakness. That gratitude was sentiment. That recognizing value outside our organization was distraction. Jae-sung returned to his position near the window. I'm restructuring operations. Park, you're being reassigned from underboss to strategic advisor. You'll still have seat at this table. Still have voice in decisions. But you won't have operational authority. The room went completely silent. Park's jaw tightened. You're demoting me because I questioned your judgment. I'm demoting you because you confused testing with intimidation. Because you thought demonstrating power meant threatening civilians. Because you forgot that real strength is knowing when not to act. Jae-sung addressed the full table. Anyone who wants to challenge this decision can do so now. We'll discuss alternatives. Vote if necessary. I'm not dictator. I'm leader. And leadership requires consensus. Nobody spoke. After 30 seconds, one of the older captains said, "Who takes Park's operational position?" Minute Jun. He's been head of security for 12 years. He knows every operation, every vulnerability, every strength. And he understands that power comes from making correct decisions, not loud ones. Park stood. This is mistake. Maybe, Jae-sung said. But it's my mistake to make. Park left without another word. 3 seconds after the door closed, conversation erupted around the table. Captains discussing implications. Asking questions about structure. Calculating how this reshuffling affected their own positions. Jae-sung let them talk. Answered questions directly. Made it clear this wasn't purge or power grab. Just recalibration. Just reminder about what actually mattered. The meeting ended an hour later. Captains filed out looking thoughtful rather than angry. Nobody defended Park publicly. Nobody challenged the decision. Which meant the organization accepted it. Might not agree. Might not like it. But accepted it. Minute Jun approached after the room cleared. That was bold. That was necessary. Park will retaliate. Maybe not immediately. But eventually. Let him. He'll do it in ways that prove exactly why he wasn't ready for more responsibility. Jae-sung looked at his watch. 3 p.m., I'm going to Stellus. Boss, Park might. Park might nothing. He just got publicly demoted in front of every captain. If he moves against me now, he loses all remaining support. He'll wait. Rebuild. Plan something smarter. And the waitress. She doesn't know about the meeting. Doesn't know about Park's demotion. Doesn't know any of this happened. And that's exactly how it should stay. 20 minutes later, Jae-sung walked into Stellus at 3:30 in the afternoon. Early dinner crowd just beginning. Michelle was working the counter, taking an order from an older Korean woman who was very specific about her soup temperature. She saw him enter. Her expression flickered with recognition and something else. Not fear. Wariness maybe. Like she was calculating whether his presence created problems. He sat at his usual booth. Waited. She finished taking the order. Walked over with water and menu. Set both down without speaking. How have you been? He asked. Fine. No problems? Should there be? He studied her face. Saw the careful neutral expression. The way she held herself slightly back from the table. Ready to leave quickly if necessary. 2 men approached you, he said quietly. 2 nights ago. Told you to forget what happened. Michelle didn't react. I don't know what you're talking about. You didn't call the number I gave you. Because there was nothing to call about. They threatened you. They had conversation. I had different conversation. Both conversations ended. Nothing worth reporting. Jae-sung leaned back. You could have used the phone. Could have told me. I would have handled it. Handled it how? By making me into something I'm not? By turning one spilled tea into some big connection these men have to respect? I don't want that. They won't approach you again. Good. Because I made it clear that anyone who touches what saved me answers to me. Michelle set down the water pitcher. I didn't save you so you'd protect me. I saved you because that guy looked wrong and you looked tired. That's it. No debt. No obligation. No connection. I know, Jae-sung said. That's exactly why it matters. They looked at each other across the worn table in the neighborhood restaurant that smelled like soup and sesame oil. I need you to understand something, Michelle said. I have a life. I work. I pay rent. I don't need complications. Don't need protection. Don't need to be part of whatever world you live in. So whatever you think you owe me, we're even. Completely even. We're not even, Jae-sung said. And we won't be. Because you did something that no one around me has done in 15 years. You acted without calculation. Without agenda. Without wondering what you'd get in return. That's just being decent. In my world? That's revolutionary. He stood. Put cash on the table. More than the meal would cost, but not so much it looked like payment for something beyond service. You won't see those men again, he said. You won't be followed. You won't be pressured. You can go back to normal life. But if anything unusual happens, if anything feels wrong, use the phone. I won't need to. Probably not. But you have it anyway. He walked toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. You saved more than you know, he said. Michelle picked up the menu and water glass. I just didn't want you dying in my section. For the first time in weeks, Jae-sung smiled. Actually smiled. Fair enough, he said. Then he left. Michelle watched through the window as he got into a car and disappeared into Los Angeles traffic. She stood there for a moment, thinking about power and protection and what it meant when someone from a completely different world decided you mattered. Then she went back to work. Because she had tables to serve and bills to pay and a life that didn't include mafia politics or bodyguards or declarations about loyalty. She'd spilled tea on a customer. That was the story. And she intended to keep it that way.